Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge.
And I'm Ashley Sledge.
And let's talk horror. Today on Didn't See That Coming, we're going to be talking about the masterpiece that is 1996's Scream. This movie is so iconic for so many different reasons. It's still, all these years later, almost 30 years later, still one of the best horror films of all time. I consider it a masterpiece, and that is not a word that I throw around very often. Wes Craven really revitalized and changed the horror genre with Scream. Now, whether you love or you hate Scream, you can't deny the impact that it had on the horror genre, and I can't deny the impact that it had on me.
Yeah, well, just look at all the things that came after Scream.
Yeah. It really started the 90s meta slasher movement.
Absolutely.
And it has sequels, and I personally believe that Scream is one of the best horror franchises of all time. While it's not my favorite, when it comes to consistency and the greatness of the films, it's up there, top 3 of the best horror franchises of all time. But we often forget, because it's so well known now, how great the twist really was in this movie. So that's why we're here. You want to get us started?
Yeah, let's get into this. So it begins with Drew Barrymore, our final girl.
I love that casting, by the way.
It's amazing.
She's all over, she's literally in the foreground of the poster. Everything was Drew Barrymore when it came out.
They
you're
did
ready.
that on purpose.
Yeah.
You have this big name star, probably the biggest name star then.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I'll tell you what happens to her. So she answers the phone, and we get the iconic voice saying,
"What's your favorite scary movie?"
And then she hangs up on him a couple of times. At one point, he gets angry the next time he calls and says, "You hang up on me again, I'm going to gut you like a fish."
What another iconic line.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that part.
She's like, "My boyfriend's on his way. He's a football player, and he's going to kick your ass."
I thought you didn't have a boyfriend.
"I have a boyfriend." He's like, "I know. Is his name Steve?" And then she gets super scared at this point. Yeah.
Total change of emotion at that point.
Absolutely. And so she goes and turns on the patio light, and there's Steve all tied up, screaming for her.
This is the iconic, "I want to play a game."
Yes. So he, goes into let's talk horror movies.
Trivia.
Yes.
Let's do the horror trivia at this point, which is great.
Absolutely. So, she's getting the answers right, and he asks, "Who's the killer in Friday the 13th? "It's Jason."
Wrong answer.
She gets it wrong. So poor Steve, he gets the brunt of that.
Well, and people, again, at the time, a lot of people, whenever we think Friday the 13th, obviously we think Jason.
Absolutely.
But Friday the 13th, the killer is Pamela Voorhees, Jason's mother.
Yeah.
So, which is now common knowledge, thanks to Scream.
Yes.
Everybody knows that Friday the 13th's killer was Pamela Voorhees. But that was a great little twist to it.
Yeah.
And what I love about this opening scene, you have Wes Craven, who at this point is probably best known for Freddy Krueger,
Right.
Nightmare on Elm Street. And in this opening scene, they're talking about Halloween,
Yes.
Michael Myers, Friday the 13th, Jason Voorhees. You're talking about really his competition, so to speak, in the horror world. Your big 3 of horror, at least for me, was always Michael, Freddy, Jason.
Yeah.
And you have all that wrapped into one nice little bundle here at the beginning.
He did amazing with that.
They really did a great job.
So anyways, after that, he gets in the house. He wants her to choose what door he's at.
Yep.
And he gets in the house. She gets out of the house, and he starts chasing her. We see Mom and Dad driving up the driveway. She was trying to get to Mom and Dad. Unfortunately, she did not make it, which I think blew everybody's mind because...
Oh, the first time we're watching this, we're like, oh, she's fine. She's going to make it.
Yeah.
So, this is probably the big twist of the beginning of the movie. We talk about the ending twist, but here's a big twist at the beginning of the movie.
Yes.
That's a twist. That's very twisty.
You got the twist of Drew Barrymore dying in the first 10 minutes of the movie, and one of the best horror openings of all time.
Oh, absolutely.
And, the mom picks up the phone, and she's like, I can hear her.
She can hear her.
And because she got her throat cut or her trachea crushed, one of the two.
Yeah, he choked her out.
Yeah,
because
so she can't.
He stabbed her. He stabbed her in the chest when they were running, and then he choked her out, and she's like,
yeah, she can't get.
Yeah.
And then you have the also iconic zoom in of her hanging from the tree with her insides on the outside.
And Mom just freaking out.
Yeah. So another great thing about this moment is it really sets a precedent for nobody is safe.
Absolutely.
In this movie, you don't have that one person that you know that person's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the next day we pan to a teenage girl in their room, or actually it's that night.
It's
Sydney.
that same night.
Yep.
We get introduced to Sydney.
Yep. And then her boyfriend comes to the window. You know,
all
old
creepy.
cliche.
Yeah.
Now she screams, so her dad's concerned. And what I love about Sydney's bedroom, I don't love it as much as a father.
Right.
But as a kid, her closet door and her door are adjacent, so she can open it and block her door. So that way no one can come in her room. That's her own little lock system.
Yeah.
And the dad can't get in while Billy's in there hiding.
I heard a scream.
Yep.
I'm good, Dad.
Yep.
Everything's good.
You didn't hear a scream, which any dad would be like, open the fucking door right now. So, you know, Billy's trying to get it in. And Sydney's like, would you settle for a PG-13 relationship with a booby shot? And Billy's like, oh, you tease. And he runs off. The next day at school, we find out about Casey's death.
Everybody finds out about Casey's death.
Yep, everybody's getting called down to the office. And this is where we meet our Deputy Dewey.
We meet Deputy Dewey.
And now we all love Dewey, but we got to remember, in this first one, he was such a dork.
He was. We'll introduce her later, but his sister Tatum totally like runs the show with them.
It's completely disrespects him all the time. Like
he's like, I'm a deputy.
Yeah, like when I wear this badge, what did Mom tell you? When I wear this badge, you treat me with respect. Like it's so awesome. Then they start asking her questions, and this is where you find out that her mother was raped and killed a year earlier. So even when the principal calls her down, like, yeah, this is Sidney Prescott, daughter of Maureen, she's been through a lot. And they even introduce it when she comes in, like, how you doing, Sid?
Yeah.
How's everything been going? And that really does play into a lot of what this movie does later on, with finding out the mother's been raped and murdered. Mm-hmm. So obviously her mother being raped and murdered was a huge story in Woodsboro, and it really affected the whole town. Mm-hmm. And the whole town is still kind of reeling from it because it was just a year earlier.
Right.
So everybody's still trying to get over that fact. When they call Sydney down, it's more of just like a precautionary measure, like a, hey, we got to do this with everybody, Sid, how you doing, more type of thing. So then we go outside.
Yeah, so then she goes and goes to her group of friends. And of course, they're all talking about the murder, how, you know, Casey was gutted like a fish.
Yeah.
And Sydney, she just can't listen to it. You know, she's already dealt with this with her mom. So she goes home and she is hanging out, laying down. And this is where she turns on the TV and we meet Gail Weathers. And Gail is talking about this murder and her mom's murder. And we kind of hear that this is where she was murdered and violently raped. And
there's also kind of poking at Sydney because Gail thinks Sydney lied.
Yeah, well, she thinks that Sydney, the person that Sydney had,
Cotton Weary,
she feels like he was framed. Like,
yeah. She feels like Sydney thought she saw him, but she actually saw someone else wearing his jacket. So there's a huge controversy of whether Cotton Weary is innocent or guilty, and Sydney's just, you know, that's it. That's the guy that killed my mom right there. Mm-hmm. And I do want to talk about the group of friends real quick because in any movie, this is probably one of the best group of friends. You got Tatum.
Yes.
And her boyfriend, Stu Macher, who's played brilliantly by Matthew Lillard.
Absolutely.
You got Randy, who's played by Jamie Kennedy. You got Billy's here. And there's so many good one-liners in this part. Like, did he really put her liver in the mailbox? I heard they put her liver in the mailbox. And then Stu's like, liver alone. You know, like, and his overacting, Matthew Lillard, is so perfect in this movie.
Oh, it totally hits home for me.
Yeah.
Some people think that it's over the top, but in my opinion, it totally.
I think it has to be for this film. Like, the way that he goes about himself in this film is just so great. He doesn't take himself too seriously, but he takes himself seriously enough to where it means a lot to him. So I absolutely love his performance in this film.
Yeah, it's really good. After she sees this film, she turns off the TV. She falls asleep because she's waiting for Tatum. She's going to Tatum's house that night.
Yeah.
And Tatum's hanging out with Stu, of course. And
then she's going to the video store to get them a video.
Yeah.
And then she's coming to get Sydney. Said she'd be there by 7. Sydney fell asleep.
She falls asleep. The phone rings, wakes her up. She answers it. It's that same creepy voice. Mm-hmm. Do you like scary movies? She says, you know, I don't like that shit. She thinks it's Randy, you know, messing with her. And then he says that he's watching her. And she's like, I call it, you know, if it goes out on the front porch, I call your bluff. You're not here like you said you were.
What am I doing?
Yes.
What am I doing right now?
One of the parts of this, though, was when he says, why don't you like scary movies? I think it's funny how she's like,
It's just, what's the point? They're all the same. Some stupid killer stalking some big-breasted girl who can't act, who's always running up the stairs when she should be going out the front door. It's insulting.
Because she then gets attacked by Ghostface when she comes in. What's funny is she comes in and locks the door, and then Ghostface attacks her, and she can't get out the front door, so she runs up the stairs.
Yeah, into her room.
Yeah, she goes to her room, and she actually dials 911 from her computer because her phone line's been cut. This is when Billy shows back up at the window, and he comes in and a cell phone drops from his pocket.
Which is, back then, you had a cell phone? Yeah. Like, that's unheard of.
Right. So then Sydney obviously gets scared, runs away. She goes to the front door, opens it, and there's Ghostface. No, it's not. It's just Dewey holding the Ghostface mask, which again shows how young and crazy Dewey is, because she screams and he's like, ah!
Yeah.
You know, and then he ends up getting arrested. Billy gets arrested at this point, and you know, he's telling Sydney, you know me. You know I wouldn't do this. So after he gets arrested, they go to the police station, and they can't find Sydney's dad.
Yeah, Sydney's dad's missing.
Yeah, he's supposed to be at the motel at the airport, the Holiday Inn at the airport, I believe it is. He's never been registered there. They can't find him, which is very suspicious.
It's very, very suspicious.
Very sus, as the kids call it. So they end up leaving. They go out the back door, so nobody catches them. And then Gail Weathers,
of course,
walks back there and finds them. And this is where Sydney lands a knockout punch to Gail when she's like, "How's your book, Gail?" And then Gail's like, "I'll send you a copy." And Sydney
knocks her out.
Gets her.
Like, yes.
They go back to Tatum's house because they don't want Sydney to be alone.
Yeah, and this is where she gets another phone call. So how could it possibly be Billy, right?
Billy's in jail.
Billy's in jail, so he couldn't be calling her.
Right.
And it's Ghostface again, and they're like, Dewey. And
he comes out in his underwear, he's like, with a gun, he's like, Hello?
Everything's already been done by this point.
That's so awesome. So then the next day at school, Gail's ready to interview Sydney, but Sydney isn't having it. She wrote the book about her mother, and in the book, she's saying Cotton Weary didn't do this.
Yeah. She thinks that he's innocent.
Yep. And then, so at this point, you know, Gail's like, Sydney, are you sure that you were right? And Sydney's like, yeah. She's like, you know something, Sydney. You know something. So now Gail's kind of putting the pieces together too of, wow, we're onto something here. And Kenny, unfortunately, Kenny the cameraman, you know, he's like, Gail, you know, this is awesome. And she's like, you know what this means? I could get an innocent man off death row. Do you know what that could do for my book sales?
Yeah, you think for 1 second, like, she actually cares about somebody else.
Yeah, and then even Kenny's face, he's just like,
yeah.
You know, and now Sydney's running in the school, and she runs into Billy.
Yeah, well, because stupid kids have ghost face masks on, and it, you know, it freaks her out.
Classless kids.
Yeah. And so she's running away from that and runs into Billy. And he's, you know, he's not upset that she put him away. She's more upset that she doesn't want to touch him.
Yeah. He's like, I shouldn't be mad that I have a girlfriend that'd rather frame me as a murderer than touch me.
Yeah.
And she's like, you know that's not it. He's like, well, then what is it? She's like, my mom. He's like, your mom died a year ago.
You should just get over it.
What? Dude, like, my mom died 3 years ago, and I'm still not over that shit, man.
Yeah, and she wasn't murdered.
Yeah.
Raped.
Yeah, she wasn't raped. Thank God.
No, I know.
But, I mean, you know, like, the heart, and he even said, he's like, stupid.
Yeah.
You know, because, come on, man. Like, even as a killer, you gotta have some type of emotions, but...
Well, I mean...
So then, you know, she ends up going to the bathroom, and she hears these girls talking shit on her.
Yeah.
And she just sits in the bathroom, and they're like, you know, she probably did it herself, or she didn't really get attacked. She's just doing it for attention. And then she ends up getting attacked by Ghostface. So she ends up getting away because it's Sydney fucking Prescott.
Right.
And she's an absolute monster when it comes to getting away from Ghostface.
So at this point, they're like, okay, town's going on curfew, and we're shutting everything down. School's closed.
Yep.
They go on curfew.
And then obviously Stu has the brilliant idea. Let's have a party at my place tonight. Everybody get together. That way we're all safe.
Right.
And this is kind of where the movie, up until this point, you're enjoying the movie. You're having a lot of fun. But you know right now, shit's really about to go down.
Yeah. So later on that night, Sydney, Tatum, and Dewey are going to the party. Dewey's accompanying them because he wants to surveil the whole party.
And what better than going to a party with a bunch of underage kids drinking?
Yeah, no kidding. So they pull up, and Gail pulls up also because she is trying to get her story. They go inside, and Gail, she plants a camera into like where the TV is, like the TV station, the center, TV center.
And it's funny because it's not just like a video, it's a live stream.
Yeah,
so they'll be
camera.
watching live outside what's happening inside at the party.
Yes. So at this point, Tatum goes out to the garage to get some more beer. And she can't get back into the house. It's locked. So she sees Ghostface. He turns off the light. And
this part right here is all Scary Movie. You know, I want to be in the sequel, Mr. Killer. Scary Movie absolutely ripped off Scream. I think we all know that. But this scene right here is one of the big things that I think really inspired it. He cuts her arm, and then she's like, "Oh, this is real."
Like, yeah, she thinks it's like Stu or somebody fucking with her.
Yeah, she thinks that they're just joking around.
So she's like, "Oh shit, like this is real," and so she sees the doggy door on the garage and climbs through it. Well, starts to climb through it.
One of the worst parts of the movie, in my opinion. The death is cool, but there's no way that garage door would continue to rise with the weight of her in there.
Yeah.
But like I said, the death is cool. You know, you get the garage door rising and then crushing her head
her head up there
on the ceiling of on the roof up there, which I think is a really, really cool.
Something I didn't mention before she, crawls through that doggy door. She throws like a full beer at Ghostface and he falls back, but that would freaking hurt.
Oh my gosh! Like I don't know how he didn't have any bruises when he took the mask off from that one. Now, while that's happening, Billy shows up at the party.
Yeah.
And Sydney and Billy go upstairs so they can talk. And he says...
So they can talk.
Yeah. So they end up, getting it in.
Yes.
Which now means Sydney's going to die because she's not a virgin anymore. Now, again, I want to talk about a scene that happens right here. You go downstairs and you see Randy giving the rules to a horror movie as they're watching Halloween. Now, Ashley can attest to this. This was me. Growing up, watching movies, like I was the Randy of every party, and I love how when they're doing this scene, you can't have sex, boo! Everybody's booing them, and then
no drugs.
Yep, never ever under any circumstance say I'll be right back. And then you get Matthew Lillard. Hey, I'm gonna go grab another beer. You want one? Yeah, give me one.
I'll be right back.
That's another scene to me that is just Matthew Lillard stealing, chewing the scenery and absolutely loving it. Now at this point, we find out that Principal Hembry.
Yeah, they get a phone. Well, Randy answers the phone. They get a phone call and they find out that he has been killed and hung.
Yeah, at the football field.
Yeah.
The Fonz. Hey! Didn't turn out too good for him.
All these crazy kids think that's cool and they want to go and they want to go see this.
Yeah. And as they're driving, you see Gail and Dewey walking down the road together.
Yeah.
And it's funny because the car's coming and Dewey's like, stop, knock it off. And it's like, you're talking to a car, bro. It's going like 70 miles an hour.
Right.
They jump into the ditch and that's where they find
Sydney's dad's car in the bushes. So, aw shit.
He's there.
So we're back inside now. Billy and Sydney are done doing their deed. And Sydney is getting dressed and she asks Billy, when he got arrested, who did you make your phone call to? And he was like, my dad. And she said, no, the sheriff called your dad, still being kind of suspicious with him after, just sleeping with him.
You just slept with a guy and you're still questioning it. Like, you animals.
Yeah. And he's like, well, when I called, my dad didn't answer. And he's like, you still suspect me? And she's like, no. And this is when Ghostface jumps out and Billy gets stabbed and killed by Ghostface.
Very violently, too.
Very violently, yes. And so Sydney, and he reaches for Sydney, and she is, freaked out, runs away from Ghostface.
Another Ghostface chase scene.
Another ghost chase and Sydney chase scene.
Another good thing about this is when Sydney jumps off the balcony, you see Tatum. This is where she discovers Tatum's body.
Yeah, she falls out of the window. Yeah.
Yeah. And you Sydney just fell, but then she lands in the boat. She's safe. And then this is where we get another very meta moment with Randy on the couch.
Jeremy, look behind you. Look behind you. Turn around. Behind you. Oh, turn behind you.
Obviously, his real name is Jamie.
Yeah.
Jamie, behind you. Look behind you. And Ghostface is there.
I love that.
I know. It's so cool. Such a great scene. And then we get Sydney running out to the van, screaming.
So she's screaming. So Ghostface, doesn't, spares Randy and chases after her.
And what we forgot to say earlier is there's about a 30-second delay from the live stream to what's actually happening in the house. So Sydney gets to the van. Kenny's in there watching. And this is where she sees, I want you guys to remember what I'm about to say. She physically watches Ghostface sneaking up on Randy to kill him. She sees this with her own eyes.
She does.
She watches Ghostface walking up to kill Randy. Then obviously they see him run out of the house.
Yeah.
Kenny gets out. And of course, because his name is Kenny, he gets his throat cut. And I want you guys to remember something. If you ever watch a horror movie and there's a Kenny in there, he gonna die. I'm just throwing that out there. I am Ken Sledge. I was once Kenny Sledge. And I'm telling you, even in Boy Meets World, every single Kenny dies.
This is true. Sydney gets out of the van, luckily.
Through the back little hatch.
And runs up to where Dewey's cop car is. And Dewey opens the door and walks out. And this is where you see Dewey fall flat on his face with a knife in his back.
Dewey has been killed. Dewey is stabbed and killed, which is very unfortunate.
So she gets in the cop car, and Ghostface has the keys, so she can't get away, and he keeps unlocking it. And Sydney is locking the doors, and he unlocks the back part of it and tries to attack her. This is the part where she gets out and runs up to the house and then sees.
Now, remember what I just said a minute ago. She sees Randy and Stu there, and they're accusing each other. And she's like, fuck you both, the hell with you both, and she shuts the door. Sydney! You just watched Randy on the couch with Ghostface coming up to kill him.
You did, Sid.
It's not Randy. What are you doing? Like, every time I watch this.
Everybody's a suspect.
Everybody's a suspect!
True. So every time I watch this, I'm like, Sydney, you save the guy. He's right there. Save him. You know it's not him.
Right.
I talked about how this is a masterpiece. The Tatum death and this part are two parts that really bother me. Randy is a trustworthy guy. Anybody that works in a video store or grew up in a video store that knows all about horror movies is very trustworthy.
They sound sus to me.
You should save them at all costs. So this is where he gets inside.
She gets inside and she sees Billy. He's at the top of the stairs. He's still alive. And he
stumbling down. Yeah, and he has a hard fall there.
Yeah, he does. And she's like, oh, shit. And she helps him up. And he was like, give me the gun. So she hands him the gun. And this is when
they let Randy in.
Yes.
And he's like, so you got to help Stu. He's gone mad. And then we get Billy saying the iconic line.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
No, Billy!
So now we know
Billy is a killer.
He's the killer.
Didn't see it coming, did ya?
And then at this point, Stu is coming in from the back end with the voice changer.
Surprise, Sydney.
And now we know that Stu's involved.
Which is funny because, once you watch it again, you obviously know there's two killers.
Yeah.
And you should have known once Billy showed up because obviously somebody had to kill him.
Right.
But your brain's still trying to process this moment. Not only is Billy a killer, but now Stu's a killer with him. And this is where they start explaining to Sydney.
Yeah, so now we get the motive.
Mm-hmm. And you find out that they are the ones, not Cotton Weary, that killed Sydney's mother. And they even say, Cotton Weary was so easy to frame. The reason they killed Sydney's mother was she was a slut. She was no Sharon Stone.
No, she wasn't.
And at this point, Billy says, your slut mother was sleeping with my father, and she's the reason that my mother left me and abandoned me.
Yes.
Which we could have touched on earlier. This has really affected Billy. He's a big mama's boy, apparently.
Yeah.
And he's like, my mother left me too. And Sydney's like, your mom left. She didn't get
she
murdered.
Didn't die. Yeah, she isn't dead.
A little bit of a difference there, Billy boy.
Just a little bit.
So now they bring out Sydney's dad.
They bring out Sydney's dad. He's all tied up. And they're going to frame him. He's the one that's going to be framed.
They put the voice changer in his pocket, and they start stabbing each other to make it look like they were victims too.
Yeah.
Right here, you get another great Matthew Lillard iconic line.
I'm feeling woozy here.
So Billy tells Stu to go grab the gun. Stu goes over, the gun's gone. Mm-hmm. You look over, and Gail's in the hallway with the gun. But she has a safety on, so Stu knocks her out and she falls right where Dewey's dead. When all this is happening, Sydney gets away and she calls him. And on the voice, she has a voice changer and she tells him, I called the cops. And Stu...
He delivers another amazing, amazing line. Did you really call the cops, Sydney? And then he gives the amazing...
My mom and dad are gonna be so mad.
So Billy's trying to find her in the house and she jumps out with Ghostface costume on and stabs the shit out of him with an umbrella. You go, girl.
Which, behind the scenes, he really got hurt at this moment.
I bet.
Like, this is a scene that he really got hurt when this happened. And another thing I want to talk about real quick is Billy's getting so angry he throws the phone. And another brilliant Matthew Lillard line.
Fucking hit me with the phone, Dick!
so
I
fucking
love all
good.
of that. So she stabs him. He's out cold. This is when Stu chases after her, and he pins her down. They're fighting, rumbling around. He's like, "I always had a thing for you, Sid," and she ends up pushing this big ass old TV onto his head, crushing his head.
Stu is dead. I want to make this very known. Stu Macher is never coming back. That was not a TV from now. This was a 90s TV.
Those were like 50 pounds, maybe more.
That boy dead.
She flattened him.
Can we please stop with the bring Stu back stuff? It's been too long. He's dead, guys. Okay, I just wanted to throw that in there.
So Gail comes back into the house, and then, of course, Billy's not dead. He stands up, and Gail shoots him. And she said, I don't have the safety on now this time.
Yeah.
And so he falls over, and Randy is still alive also.
Yes!
And he's like, they don't always die.
This is the time when the supposed dead killer comes back for one more scare.
And he does. He jumps up, and Sydney shoots him right in the head.
Yep.
Headshot.
Not in my movie.
Not in my movie, she says. And so this is the end. We go outside. Dewey's alive. He's getting put in the ambulance. And Gail's trying to get herself looking good to tell the tragic story. And this is where it pans away from the house.
Now, what an amazing movie.
Absolutely.
Not only did it spark, at the time of this recording, 4 sequels, varying in quality, but none of them are bad. There's not one bad Scream movie in the bunch. But, oh my gosh, the amount of different movies that this influenced, whether it be your I Know What You Did Last Summer, Valentine, The Faculty, Halloween H2O. I mean, I could go on and on and on with the movies that this influenced. Urban Legend, another really good one.
Yep.
Wes Craven really knocked it out of the park with this one. Not only did he give us A Nightmare on Elm Street, he gave us Scream, which are 2 of the most iconic horror franchises of all time. And he's missed. His brilliance is absolutely missed. But another thing I want to talk about with Scream real quick before we go. What are your guys' favorite moments and least favorite moments about the first Scream? Like I said, I know this is a masterpiece, and I don't drop that word very often when it comes to film. Very rarely. But it is. I don't by any stretch think it's a perfect film. I do think there are parts of this film that irritate me, like when she doesn't let Randy in the house, even though she knows he's not the killer. That really bothers me. But what are your thoughts of this movie? If you had to rank it on 5 skulls, what would your ranking be of this? I'm going to give it 4.5, which is huge for me because I very rarely go 4 and more. What would you give it?
I'm gonna give it 5. It's in my book, it's a great movie. I love it, and anytime someone says, hey, let's watch Scream, I'm down for sure.
I can definitely see that. So what are your guys' opinions? Give us a shout down here in the comments. Let us know your opinions on Scream. What are your favorite parts about it? What are your least favorite parts about it? And another question I have for you guys, Scream's killers, being Matthew Lillard and Skeet Ulrich, being Billy and Stu, were the ones in Scream your favorite killers of the bunch? For me, yes. I think they are the best. I think This was amazing. But like I said, this is not taking away from any of the sequels. I think all the sequels are great, and they are all amazing in their own way. None of them are the masterpiece that is 1996's Scream. So we want to thank you guys so much for joining us. If you haven't already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We'd love to have you along for the rest of the ride. So until next time, I'm Ken Sledge.
And I'm Ashley Sledge.
Keep talking horror.
Stay what you are.
And we'll see you guys soon.
Bye, guys.